Welcome to Kickin with the Rickens, redefining retirement. Jerry Ricken and Heidi Ricken Provost want to help you retire with purpose and live with joy. Find more information, including how to reach the team, in today's show notes. Now, Kickin with the Rickens, powered by Ricken Financial.
Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for downloading. Thanks for listening to Kickin with the Rickens podcast. We are here with retirement planner Heidi Ricken Provost. My name is Mark Owens. We invite you to get more at rickenfinancial.com. You can get all the information here in the show notes. Thanks again for subscribing. Now, let's get to the show. Retirement planner and international TV star, Heidi Ricken Provost. I'm going to say international because it sounds really pretty cool. How you doing?
Hey, thanks for hyping me up, Mark.
Local TV star now. So,
Yes.
Yeah, man, we hear you on the podcast. We hear you on this radio show. We're going to see you on TV. You're taking over, Heidi. Well, how was that recording some little TV we're going to see soon?
Oh, it was awesome. I got to hang out with Matt Chambers of KMOV the other day and record a few segments to bring to Great Day St. Louis. And it was so much fun. And, we talked about this earlier, but I thought I was going to be so nervous when I got in this TV studio because I expected to see about 500 people behind the camera staring at me, trying to figure out what was going on. And it was unbelievable. The only people in the studio were him and myself and one other woman. And everyone else was operating the cameras and producing and everything from behind a wall. So it's a little less intimidating. It was awesome.
Now, were they behind the wall because of technology, or were they behind the wall because they know that they have people in the studio that don't do this all the time, so they're trying to make you more comfortable without a bunch of, chaos behind the camera?
I think it was combining those efforts because since this is local TV and they have different guests in this studio every single day who don't work in TV every day, I think it was the best of both worlds. But for them, I'm sure it was a little bit of a change to move from behind the camera to behind a robot operating a camera. But who knows, maybe it streamlined the process so well for them that they just thought, oh, this is great. And we can help out all of our guests here too.
You've become very comfortable here on Kickin with the Rickens, and we invite you to stream the Kickin with the Rickens podcast. You can find it at rickenfinancial.com. But when that red light comes on in a TV studio, are you just as comfortable, or do the nerves kick in a little more?
It's crazy. The nerves kicked in prior to even stepping foot into the studio. And then the second I got in the studio, I was like, oh, this is cool. I think if there would have been a bunch of people staring at me, the nerves would have still been setting in. But I didn't even need it to be that cold to cool me off and, not sweat through my jacket on TV. So also, I have to give props to Matt because he made me feel so comfortable in that studio that, it's like the relationship I share with you. There's a lot of comfort in the way that your co-host helps you feel too.
Yeah, but when you're working with good people, it makes our jobs a lot easier. So one take, or were these multiple takes? And I'm straight up putting one take.
One take. It's like that bar stool. One bite, everyone knows the rules. One take, that was it.
That's awesome. And when can we see these?
That's a good question. So why don't you guys head on over to rickenfinancial.com, RICKEN, and when we know, we will let you know.
It's going to be funny the first time these air. People who listen to this show and stream the podcast, they're not going to listen to any of the information, any of the content. They're going to go, there she is. There's Heidi. There's Heidi. She's on TV. She's on TV. I told you. There she is.
Yeah, you can put a face to the voice. I did make the joke. I said, well, I've been used to the radio waves and podcasting. I must have a face for it. I don't know why they stuck me on TV too.
I love it, man. We're so proud of you, man. You are taking over. So we look forward to seeing those on TV very, very soon. And Heidi, this week, let's talk a little bit about, and we're in the season, tax planning versus investment planning. And there is a big difference.
Of course, there is. And, we talk about both of them here because the two largest risks you're going to have in your retirement world, if you haven't already implemented this planning effectively, is investment risk when it comes to your market risk. If the markets go up and down, are you invested based upon your investment risk? And then tax risk. And most people don't really think about tax risk or know what that means, but we're going to dive in deep on both of these today. And we're going to have a couple of segments where we talk about it. So we're not going to get to all of this right now, but let's give you the 30,000 foot view of what this looks like. Okay. So every portfolio includes more than one investment usually. You might have a 401k or an IRA or some money in a stock and some cash in the bank. And a Roth and all the different money in the world. And there's two different types of risk you need to look at when we're on the precipice of retirement or in your retirement. And the first is that investment risk. And investment planning is going to look at each individual investment. What type of risk is it exposed to in the market? If it's in the market, if it's not in the market, what are the other risks that it's exposed to? What type of rate of return is it making? Is it matching your risk tolerance overall? If there is a market correction, are you going to be okay? And when we talk market risk, everyone in our industry typically only talks about diversification in the form of market diversification. You need to be globally diversified in the stocks, bonds, mutual funds, cash, CDs, annuities, any, life insurance plans, anything you're invested in. We want to ensure that you spread that market risk out and diversify your risk appropriately there. A lot of us don't take it a step further beyond that. We're just focused on that because a lot of the people who are only focused on market risk are those accumulation financial advisors, and they spend time helping you accumulate your assets for the future, which there's nothing wrong with. When you're working, you need to accumulate your funds so that one day you can retire. But as I mentioned, when you're on the precipice of retirement or when you're in retirement, that's the point in time we really need to hyper-focus on the tax risk as well. Or if you're starting out right now and you're 40 years from retirement, if you can focus on the tax risk now, you're going to be so much further ahead in the end. So what does that look like? Because it's a different set of diversification and risk than the market. Well, there are so many investments that run the gambit when it comes to taxation. We have your traditional funds, whether they be in IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, TSP plans, thrift plans, the money that you set aside for the future that you haven't paid tax on. That's one investment. We have your Roth money. We have brokerage accounts that are not retirement funding accounts that could be in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, exchange traded funds, structured notes. There's a bunch of different stuff we can invest in the market that is not a retirement fund. You have rental property that you can utilize to diversify your tax risk. There's HSA accounts, your health savings accounts, 529 plans to fund future educations. There's all the cash in the bank that you might have as well. There are so many different investments available to you that have a different form of taxation, both in your lifetime and upon your legacy. And what tax planning and tax diversification looks like is implementing a strategy for which investment we choose to fund when, and then a strategy for which investment we're going to withdraw the money from first. Because when you're in your retirement years, you're no longer accumulating your assets. You're now preserving them and distributing them effectively. So you have to have some form of tax planning to look at what that withdrawal order is going to be, as well as what do we invest in on the way up, the mountain before we go to retire. And now we have to walk down and let the money last. So that's kind of the 30,000 foot view. Right. Is tax planning is going to involve some tax diversification for your tax risk, and investment planning will involve investment diversification for your market risk. And when you combine those two effectively, you can have a very, very fruitful retirement. So if you want to dive in deeper about what that means, give us a buzz at 314-207-6211, and we'll start the conversation about the risks that you're exposed to now and see if they match your profile.
You mentioned a couple of seconds ago about if you're 40 years out from retirement, you've got some time. But when is a good time to really start getting invested with tax planning versus investment planning? Like if we're in our accumulation phase, we're still building those assets, or is it something that really get heavily invested, pardon the pun, when we're about 5 years out? What say you?
I'd say when it comes to your investment risk, 5 to 10 years out is when we're going to make the biggest difference. But when it comes to your tax risk, there is never a point in time where it's too early to diversify your tax risk and to appropriately invest in the appropriate tax diversified investments. So there's never a time that's too early, but also there is truly never a time that's too late when it comes to either of these risks that we're exposed to. Because that's usually the question we get more often is, oh my gosh, I've invested this way for the last 30 years. Is it too late to make the difference now?
Right. Heidi, in that last segment, you made the comment that as we talk about helping to fund future education for our kids and our grandkids, you said the opportunity for a 529 plan. Now, over the past couple of years, I've heard some people say that those aren't as good as an option as they once were because of taxes, because of, they're just not as valuable, I guess is the right way to say it. What say you when it comes to helping fund the education for our kids and our grandkids?
Well, every person I meet with will have a different answer for whether or not the 529 is the best plan for them. However, that brings up a good point because a couple things happened in our tax law the last few years in respect to a 529 plan. And the first is we used to be very segmented on the educational expenses you could cover if you put money into a 529. So for those of you who don't know what a 529 plan is, it is a funding opportunity for future educational expenses. And as long as that money goes towards the defined educational expenses when it comes to the IRS, it's going to come out tax-free, even with growth. So we have some expanded expenses that you can put that money towards, which opens up more opportunity because in the past, it used to be very segmented. And we used to see 15 years ago, people who had saved money in a 529 for their kids, and then the kids got a full ride, and now they have to pay tax on money that was coming out to cover some of those expenses because we didn't have that expanded definition in the past. So yes, for years, people probably did say it doesn't cover as much as you think it does, but that kind of opened up recently. And then we have another incredible tax opportunity that opened up in terms of 529. So if you had a kid that you were funding education for who didn't use their 529 money because maybe they got part of their education covered, maybe they didn't go to college, whatever the reason may be, if there's money left behind in a 529, you used to have to take it out and pay tax on growth. And, there was really no opportunity to turn that into something tax-free for the future. Well, now, if you fall within the income guidelines and the stipulations that the IRS sets, which I'm not getting into detail because you're going to sit here and go cross-eyed thinking through it.
Right.
But if you fall within the guidelines, you can actually convert your 529 money into a Roth so it can be tax-free for any reason, not just education moving forward. So we do have some more opportunities when it comes to our 529 plans, but like everything else in our industry, but especially when it comes to tax planning and investment planning, and then when we combine those together, every person I meet with will have a different answer for whether that's right in their portfolio or not. So if you're at the water cooler and someone's talking about it, take it all with a grain of salt because they have no idea what your tax picture looks like. They have no idea what your investment risk looks like. They don't know, how much ins and outs you have in your portfolio. So how on earth are they supposed to give you advice for whether a 529 makes sense or not?
I read a story once that said there are annuities out there that could be a good alternative for a 529. What say you?
Once again, if that fits in your portfolio, potentially. However, most people, maybe if you're in your retirement and you want to cover your grandchild for the future, that may potentially make sense. But most people are putting money into a 529 when they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s to fund future educations for their kids. And annuities usually don't work very effectively for 20, 30, and 40-year-olds if you're on the early side of that. So
all right.
I don't know. We open up every opportunity and see, because a 529 is just one thing we can use to fund future educations. But when we talk about the investment plan and looking at all the different investments that are available for you, and then the tax plan and looking at diversifying your tax risk amongst those investments too, if the future goal is to fund education, a 529 is only one of those opportunities. You could also utilize life insurance for the living benefits, not for the death benefit, but for the living benefits of being able to have some tax-free income in the future. Or it might make sense in your portfolio to have a brokerage account that's going to cover that. Or there are so many different opportunities, including this one's probably not going to be for education unless we're covering education beyond the age of 18. But there's a new opportunity now available too, that if you watched the Super Bowl, you saw some commercials for, are Trump accounts. And that opens a new investment opportunity and a new tax diversification opportunity for kids who were born in 25, 26, and 27, and or under the age of 18 at that age, or in those years. So if you were born in those years, on your 1040, when you go to do your tax return this year and you're the parent who is claiming that dependent, you just need to click that you'd like to open a Trump account for them. And if you do so, if you're born in those years, you get $1,000 of taxpayer money to fund that account. Plus, there are some other opportunities of people helping you fund those as well. And then you can maximize those accounts. If you're not born in those years, you can still open an account. You just don't get a free $1,000 in it. But you can maximize every Trump account by adding $5,000 a year into it. And it's a way to help the kids who probably won't have as many opportunities as us, because at some point in time, we're going to have to pay the piper and figure out our tax issues.
Yep.
So I think, unfortunately, kids like your daughter Caroline are probably not going to have as many opportunities as us when it comes to taxation and Social Security and whatnot in the future. So, hey, if we can fund a Trump account for her, then by the time she's age 18, she'll be able to touch it. And with the growth, it could do quite a bit for her. So there's a bunch of different opportunity there as well that opened up with those Trump accounts too. But like I said, you can't touch that till you're age 18. So that may or may not be the right fit for funding education too.
I want to go back to the Trump account for a minute, because off the air, we were talking about this and you did some quick math about potentially how much your child, your grandkid could have if you invest into the Trump account correctly when that child turns 18 or 25. Do that math for me again, because it was great.
Okay, so as I was sharing, if the kid is born in 25, 26, or 27, they get a free $1,000 of government money, taxpayer money, to start that Trump account for them. And then if you add the $5,000 a year from 0 to 18 for them, it's growing in an index fund that the government's actually in control of what the Trump accounts are invested in. But if we look at, the growth trajectory of what it's going to be invested in, and then the second they turn age 18 and they have access to it, if you turn that into a Roth, by the time that 18-year-old is in their 60s at age 65, say they retire then, a $91,000 investment could be more than $1.8 million of tax-free money at age 65. So some people actually said to me, I feel like this isn't enough of an opportunity to only put $5,000 a year in there. $5,000 a year can go very, very far in the end when invested properly. And when we combine your investment and your tax to ensure that they work together effectively, because if you can turn it into something tax-free that has compounded growth, isn't that the best for all of us? And if you want some advice on whether this makes sense in your portfolio, if you're helping a kid or a grandkid or a niece or a nephew or whoever you love in this world who was born in 25, 6, 7, or whoever you love in this world who was not born in those years, but we want to see if this makes sense in your overall portfolio, give us a buzz at 314-207-6211. Because like I said earlier, this is not one size fits all.
Yeah.
There isn't just one right answer for which investment we want to invest in for our different needs in the future. But we do need to take investment planning into consideration and ensure that you're properly utilizing the different investments in your portfolio for what we want them to do for you moving down the line into our financial future.
314-207-6211. We don't talk politics here much on Kickin with the Rickens, but it is fascinating. This seems like a great opportunity, but it's called the Trump account. So I want to peel back the curtain a little bit at Ricken Financial. Have you sat down with somebody who maybe not a fan of the president and they go, I love the idea, I love the opportunity, I don't like the name, and you have to say, all right, put your biases to the side. This is a great opportunity.
100% we have. And I understand that because, naming stuff after ourselves is a choice.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, seeing what it can do for our kids, that's all that matters. And whatever it's called, if we're going to help out our children for our financial future, I'm all about it because I've said it a couple times, but I truly believe that, the tax code was written to help pay off our debt. And our national deficit is at an all-time high and our tax rates are at historic lows. at some point in time, someone's got to pay the piper. So
Yep.
unfortunately, I think our kids are probably going to be the ones, and those who aren't even born yet are probably going to be the ones that have to pay the piper at some point in time. So if we can help put them ahead of the game now, why wouldn't we take advantage of it no matter what it's called?
Yeah. Or you can call it the POTUS account if you want to, whatever's easier for you.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. You can call it whatever you want. Just
Right.
because the government calls it something different doesn't mean that's what you and your family have to call it. But at the end of the day, we want to ensure that you're doing the right thing for yourself and your family, and that you're meeting your financial goals no matter what investment you're in or what tax risk it's exposed to. So we'd love to help walk that through, what that looks like for your family, because everyone does have a different picture of what that's going to mean. And it just simply starts with a conversation. So give us a buzz at 314-207-6211. We'll sit down and we'll walk you through it, because you don't know what you don't know. So let's get started and help get you educated on what's available out there.
Again, that number is 314-207-6211. Ask for the Purpose Approach. Retire with purpose and live with joy. But Heidi, what is the Purpose Approach?
The Purpose Approach is the name of our plan and what we're going to walk you through so that we can help you build out a purposeful retirement. It starts with you. What do you want to do every day in retirement to feed your soul and bring you joy? Because you have worked so hard to get to retirement. We want you to do something with your time that's going to bring you purpose and, truly feed your soul with joy instead of just, riding away in retirement. We want to know what you want to do with your time. And once we know what you want to do with your time, we help you build a custom complementary financial plan that will get you there to live your purpose. It's going to include income. How much income do you need? How much income do you want to do what you want to do in retirement? And what about the one-off things? Like, do you need to right size your home or add in a travel budget or something like that? We want to ensure that you have all the income needs possible to meet those needs and those wants. Then your investment plan. Are you taking the right amount of risk and matching your risk tolerance when we look at your overall portfolio? And then each individual investment. What are the risks you're exposed to there, and are you comfortable with them? And then tax planning. Unfortunately, when you retire, the IRS does not retire alongside you. So we have to do some form of tax planning to ensure that the money coming in is going to be most tax efficient for you and your family moving forward, and that you get to keep more money in your pocket and less money in the IRS's pocket overall. We also are going to look at long-term care and health. So, do you need a different health insurance plan to help cover you right now? Well, what if you do have healthcare needs in the future, and maybe it includes needing some form of long-term care coverage? We take a look at how that would impact everything and help you come up with a plan for how you're going to weather that storm. Then life insurance. Do you need life insurance for the death benefit, or would you like to utilize it for the living benefits, whether it might cover you in long-term care or help provide some form of tax-free income to you and your family moving forward? And then, of course, we need to look at your estate and legacy plan as well. Are you going to be avoiding probate if you're no longer with us right now? And is your family going to be your largest beneficiary, or have you structured things so that the IRS might benefit more than your family? And is there a way to restructure that? When we add that all up together, it's a comprehensive plan that's going to look at your entire retirement world and help us take a purposeful approach to it so that you don't really have to sit back and worry about the money. You can just enjoy the fruits of your labor and love what you do every single day in retirement, just as you did in your working years.
314-207-6211. 314-207-6211. You can always get more at rickenfinancial.com. And Heidi, this weekend we've been talking about multiple investment accounts, and we've been talking tax planning versus investment planning. But when it comes to those multiple accounts for income, how do you help us mitigate risk in these accounts?
I mentioned earlier when I was just talking through the purpose approach, our investment plan looks at everything overall when we add all of your investments together to see what type of risk you're taking overall in your portfolio. But then we also want to look individually at each individual investment to see what kind of risks you're exposed to, because so often we kind of get in this world where you just kind of set it and forget it. Maybe you're in a target fund in your 401k or your IRAs, or you might be invested in this, that, or the other, and you don't really think you need to make any changes, or, hey, this target fund changes as I change in age too. Well, what we want to do is really peel back the curtain on each individual investment you're in, because there are so many different market risks you could be exposed to. And you could also be invested in cash with no risk. But when we look at the full spectrum of market risk when it comes to your investments, each individual investment probably should be invested a different way. We want to make sure that you're truly globally diversified. And what we find a lot of times is when people come in to see us and we take them through the purpose approach and we take a look at the investment plan, we're going to sit down and we're going to do a deep dive into your risk tolerance, because every single human being we meet with, even if you're in a married couple, usually the partners have a different idea of their risk tolerance too. But everyone has a different idea of what their risk tolerance really looks like, what rate of return they're searching for, and how much risk they'd be comfortable with in the event that we have a market correction. Because when we're at an all-time high in our market, people don't really focus on the risk because they're like, I want to make as much money as possible.
Yep.
But since we don't have a crystal ball and we don't know if there's going to be a market correction anytime soon, we do need to ensure that what you're doing matches your risk profile and your risk tolerance, because the point in time you're not matching that and we do have a market correction is when the pain can really enter your retirement. So we look at it from an aggregate. When we add everything together, overall, are you matching your risk profile? Then individually, are you invested in the exact same stocks and the different mutual funds that you have and all the different investments you're in? Then you're exposed to more risk than you really realize. At the end of the day, you could probably sit here and run a bunch of different reports and see what kind of risk you're exposed to. But why not have a meeting with us and have us do that for you? Because when you don't do it on a daily basis, it's probably going to take you a whole lot longer than it would for us to come up with it and kind of show you and walk through it. But it's important to know each individual investment. What risk when it comes to market are they taking? What type of rate of return is it, projected to make for the future? And when we add all of that up together, that's where the investment plan comes in play. And we can ensure that not only overall are you matching your risk tolerance, but internally in every single investment, you're matching the type of tolerance you're comfortable with when it comes to your market risk. And you're also meeting the rate of return that you would like to make overall. So it's the first step in ensuring that your investments are risk averse and kind of globally diversified when it comes to that market risk. If you want to walk through what your risk analysis looks like, what your tolerance for risk looks like, and if you're matching that right now, because you might not know if your investments match that or not, we'd love to chat. So give us a buzz at 314-207-6211. That's 314-207-6211. And we'll begin the purpose approach with you when it comes to your investment plan.
So you were just mentioning that. Sit down and talk about your risk tolerance in your portfolio. Heidi, how often does somebody come out and sit down with you and you're going over some investment ideas, you're putting together a plan, and you start talking about risk, and they have no clue how much risk they have overall. And they're like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing over here versus over here. How often do people just have no clue of the risk in their portfolio?
More often than not, that is the case, because the other thing is, if you have multiple advisors you're working with that have different ideals for how they're going to be spreading your risk amongst your portfolio, a lot of times they invest in the same individual stocks, but just in different funds. And when you add it all up together and you look at it, you could potentially see people who have about 20 to 30% of their portfolio invested in one stock, but they think that they're not overly weighted in any individual stock because they just simply don't know what each individual investment is invested in and what percentage of that investment is invested in it too. So more often than not, we find people truly don't know what their market risk is and if they're matching it with their investments. The other thing is, if you've been accumulating your funds for 20, 30, 40 years with the same, firms, and you've only been focused on your accumulation investments, there are a bunch of different investments out there in the world beyond what you accumulate your funds with so that you can preserve them and distribute them to you in your retirement years. And if you've never been exposed to those other investments, you may not even know that there are other options available for you on the risk spectrum when it comes to your investments. But you don't know what you don't know, and we're not going to fault you for it. But if you've never sat down and worked through a retirement plan, not an investment, because having a 401k is an investment. Having IRAs or brokerage accounts, those are investments. A retirement plan covers all the things we mentioned in the purpose approach, your investment plan, your income plan, your tax planning, legacy and estate planning, long-term care, life insurance, and so much more. If you don't have a plan for that, that's all encompassing, then you're probably doing yourself a disservice because you may not even know what you're not utilizing appropriately in your retirement plan because you're not specifically focused on retirement. You probably have only been focused on accumulating the assets to get toward your retirement. So we'd love to walk you through the difference between those two because, as I mentioned earlier, nothing wrong with accumulation investments. You got to accumulate your funds at some point in time so that you can get to retirement. But we want to ensure that you know everything that is available out there in the market and that you're properly utilizing the right investments for the stage of life that you're in. So we'd love to take a look at that together, but it has to start with a phone call or a reach out on our website. And we can be reached at 314-207-6211 or over on our website, rickenfinancial.com. That's RICKEN financial.com.
Heidi, we were doing so good the first couple of months of the new year. Feeling good, clean, feeling healthy, feeling strong.
Working out hard, yep.
And then our dealer shows up. And our dealer is this cute, adorable little thing, and it's killing me, Heidi.
Yeah, they have their little vest on. They're either brownies or daisies or full-blown Girl Scouts.
Pigtails and all smiles, and I give in every single time.
Hi, Miss Heidi. Would you like to buy some Girl Scout cookies?
I don't want to buy one. I'm going to buy them all.
Yeah, I was a Girl Scout myself, and my mom was our troop leader every year, and we had so much fun. Honestly, I was never, we didn't go camping or anything as kids. So like, yeah, we were outdoorsy when we would go to Kansas and visit my dad's family and everything. But Girl Scout camp was the first camp I was exposed to, and we had so much fun. My mom taught us how to churn butter, cook over an open flame, like do all these things at Girl Scout camp. But back in the day, it was tough to sell Girl Scout cookies. You had to put yourself out there. You had to knock door to door. You were a door-to-door salesman. Yep. You had to really like sell your soul to get these cookies sold. And you were proud if you hit 40 boxes for the season.
Yep.
And we were always taught why we're selling Girl Scout cookies, because it's empowering women financially from a young age. We're learning how to manage the money that we're selling the cookies for and how to add it up even just financially, and entrepreneurship skills of putting yourself out there and managing a business and whatnot. And I was sharing with you that, Dad and I work our parish fish fry. And towards the end of the night, looked over there and the Girl Scouts have been selling all night. I walked up and I said, first of all, it's hard for me to take a break, but I did tell the guys that I pull all the food for so that they stick it in the fryer, that they were on their own for a few. But I walked out there and I said, so girls, tell me why we're selling Girl Scout cookies. And one of them's like, I really want a Squishmallow. I'm like, oh, okay. So then we had a little financial discussion together, because it is one of my passions to empower women, no matter what their age is financially. Found out they had 100 boxes left over. So Jerry and I decided to make a donation to the Girl Scouts and buy the rest of their table and talk to them about the importance of learning finances from a young age. And yeah, we forgot that we walked up to the fish fry. So my mom had to come with a car to help us carry 100 boxes of Girl Scout cookies home. But now when you come visit us in our office, you have the opportunity to grab whatever box floats your boat and enjoy those cookies at home, because we believe that empowering women financially starts at a young age, and we're not stopping anytime soon.
I love that. What was their reaction like when you said?
One of the girls almost cried.
Oh, I love that.
She jumped up, and I think she probably hurt her ankle. She jumped up and down so much. And she was like, what do you mean? And then she just started counting, and her mom was like, honey, we have to do it this way. And she's like, okay, well, it's more fun this way. Let me count first. And then, then we can tell them how many boxes we have left. So it was really cute, very sweet. And it's an honor to be able to support a cause that I think is so worthy, because the Girl Scouts of America does some unbelievable things in every community that they're in. But also just seeing the girls come together and work as a unit to do the biggest task they've done as a troop was pretty darn cool too.
Just quickly, what's your favorite? Which one's your cookie?
My favorite are the Samoas.
Yeah.
How about you?
Thin Mints, only because we'll put them in the freezer and then crush them up and put them in some ice cream. I think Dairy Queen even makes like an Oreo Blizzard now, or a Thin Mint Blizzard.
Everyone's jumping on the Girl Scout bandwagon. They're just so darn good. We can't say no to those cookies.
So you're always consistently helping out the community as well. And I do want to talk for a couple seconds here because speaking of empowering women, Heidi, you have the opportunity to host some educational workshop, some seminars, specifically for females to and through retirement.
So if you go over to our website, rickenfinancial.com, Ricken, and head over to the events tab, you'll always see what events we're bringing to the local community. But something I'm very passionate about is ensuring that women feel empowered to make the right financial decisions, whether it's the day-to-day financial decisions or the big picture stuff when we're planning for retirement. Because, statistics have shown for the last few years, only about 12% of women feel empowered and have the right knowledge to make the financial decisions when it comes to the big picture stuff. So I'm trying to help change that narrative. So I host women-only events where the women come in the room and we kind of have an open dialogue about what's on their mind, what they want to learn more about, and how I can help them make the right decisions moving forward, because you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes we just need a safe place to ask the questions that everyone else might be thinking, but you're kind of too afraid to ask. So we get together and we roll through that. And I have had so much fun getting to know so many incredible women. Some of them are single or divorced or widowed, or some still married. And we've had so much fun together, kind of getting to know each other and work through a lot of different financial plans to ensure that they're making the right decisions for themselves and their family moving forward.
You can get more information about some great upcoming events at rickenfinancial.com, Ricken, rickenfinancial.com. Can you give me an example on helping the females across the community? Maybe a couple of situations that you've really taken somebody who's been, overwhelmed, a little nervous, anxiety-ridden, and you've been able to put a plan together?
Of course. So, I'm not going to talk specifics here, but okay, hypothetically, there are quite a few women I've met with recently. And if we kind of take tidbits of each of their story and put it together, let's give you a hypothetical example of something that could happen here. So maybe you've been DIYing your finances or worked with a couple different investment advisors or financial advisors on everything, and you're getting closer to retirement and you might be a little bit nervous about, now that I have to live on my own money, A, is it going to be enough? B, how am I going to handle the taxes? And C, what really risks am I exposed to? And am I doing the right thing here? So if we peel back the curtain here, I've said this before, but most people who ask, do I have enough saved, are the ones who do have enough saved, because, when you have that fear, it's a good, healthy fear because you've worked so hard for your savings. But, that's the first question we're going to answer when we take a look at everything and we forecast all of your ins and outs, your investments, your tax risk, everything through age 100. But when we forecast that out, we actually can show you how much tax you're going to pay in your lifetime and how much risk you're exposed to. And let's say you don't know what you don't know. So if you didn't know that putting a different amount of risk in each of your investments when it comes to the taxation, when we add in your investment risk and your tax risk together, say you make an overall 7% rate of return with the amount of risk you're taking in your portfolio. But if you could flip that risk on its head, and the investments that you currently were taking risk in and not taking risk in, you flipped it on its head from a tax lens, you could potentially save yourself in your lifetime, I don't know, $1.5 or $2.5 million. And then upon your demise, you might be able to have a larger bucket of money to leave behind to your family and much, much less money going to the IRS. If you could make a decision that could do that, isn't that something you'd want to do? So that's why we talk about investment planning and tax planning. They have to go hand in hand, because if you didn't know that choosing the proper investment risk when it comes to the tax risk and then the withdrawal order of those, if you didn't know that adding those three up together and just making simple changes could make over $1 million difference to your family in your lifetime of how much you have to pay the IRS versus what you get to keep in your pocket, wouldn't you want to keep $1 million in your pocket and help cover you if you need long-term care? Or if you want to take the family to Disney, or whatever it is that you want to do in your lifetime, if you could keep more money in your pocket just by making some simple changes, wouldn't you want to? So that's what things might be able to look like if we meet and combine your withdrawal order with your investment planning and the risk that you take in your investments, as well as your tax planning and the risk that you're taking tax-wise in each of your investments as well.
Heidi, thank you. Thank you for the education. Thank you for the information this weekend. We're back next weekend, but Heidi Ricken Provost, take us home.
Every day is a holiday. Life is short. Laugh hard.
This has been Kickin' with the Rickens, redefining retirement.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business Ricken Financial LLC. Ricken Financial LLC is also an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through Impact Partnership Wealth LLC, a registered investment advisor. IPW does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by Ricken Financial LLC are not subject to investment advisor requirements. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Ricken Financial LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Ricken Financial LLC.
Please remember that converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA.
Tax preparation and tax advisory services are offered through Ricken Financial. These services are not offered by IPW and are not subject to investment advisor requirements. These services referenced are an outside business activity not offered through or supervised by IPW.